It is 11 a.m. on a Thursday. That means it's time for My Loso Lifestyle with Mary Shep. Mary, good morning. Happy Thursday.
Good morning. Happy Thursday. I'm waiting for my technology to catch up with me here so I can share this out to the world like we always do. Because, trying to talk on a radio station while doing things that are technically challenged.
Well, you know what we've never done is we've never played your entire theme song. Do you want me to just put your theme song back on and let everybody enjoy that while you're working on sharing that out?
It's funny because when we first picked that, speaking of it, we can chat about my theme song. Hey, Dad. Speaking of the theme song, when we first started this show, it was kind of why not? It'd be fun. I'll do it and see how it goes and content and whatever and blah, blah, blah. And I can yammer on about food for as long as you want me to yammer on about food for.
Right.
And then a year and something later, like, holy crap, we didn't expect it. So when we picked the theme song, it was just kind of like, what sounds good? Let's do something. Yeah. Let's do something to play it in. And surprisingly enough, it's grown on me. Like, I really, really, really like it. And now
have you ever heard your theme song all the way through?
I think once a year ago we played it, and because we went back and forth between a lot of different ones. Yeah. And I think I liked the name of it more than I liked the music itself.
Well, I mean, it is called Funshine.
Right. So it's just, I don't know. That sounds funny to me. It sounds Care Bearish.
Yeah, kind of, but I think it's also kind of reflective of your personality, it kind of fits you to me anyway.
Funny like a clown, or what, you making fun of me?
No, just like, hey,
was that from Goodfellas?
It's Funshine. It's we're not funny like a clown. Yeah. Are you funny like I can't do Joe Pesci, but
right? I just pictured that scene.
Yeah. No, not funny like
what do you mean I'm funny? Funny like a clown? What?
But all happy and sunshiny is what, that's why I think, maybe
yes.
That works. Happy and sunshiny, not funny. I mean, it's fun shine, not funny shine. So instead of sunshine, it's funshine. So
that's hilarious.
Anyway,
anywho,
we can always pick a new. I know that because of some listener comment that we recently had a show change on Tuesdays, and one of our shows actually completely changed their name, and we've changed the theme song too.
Oh yeah, I think I was watching when I heard about that. Yeah. So today I want. There's about a million reasons why I want to. I've talked about this about a million times. Diets and how I hate the word. I hate the thought. I hate diets. I hate them in general. But like literally, diets are everywhere. Everywhere you look, it's diet this, diet that, diet. And good morning, Pamela. So it's not people one after the other. They try all of these diets, and we're always looking for an answer while ignoring the truth in the solution. And diets are that way. It's true in all aspects of life. When we can't make sense of things, we're not willing to accept the answers that contradict what we want or cannot relate to the perspective of our own. So when I speak of perspective, when I was in the hospital, in the morning, Nicole. So I'm sitting in a bed in a hospital, and I was just told that I have advanced decompensated cirrhosis of the liver, and I'm retaining 9 liters of fluid in my abdomen with ascites, edema, in what do they call it? Encephalopathy or something like that. In other words, it's a stroke-like effect. When so much garbage and ammonia builds up into your bloodstream, it starts affecting your brain and your speech and how you process things. And I mean, when you look up, and that's why I think it's funny that someone had said, you must have been misdiagnosed. You can't possibly have advanced cirrhosis in one of my cirrhosis groups because I'm not on any medications and I'm doing as well as I'm doing. That's not a misdiagnosis or a fluke. It's how I've handled it and changed my path. But when I was in the hospital, I'm lying in bed next to a woman who has the same diagnosis as I do. And roughly 6 months later, she passed away. We exchanged emails. We didn't really chat much. Every once in a while, I'd get something from her. And then I got a blast email that said, this is such and such family member, so on and so forth. If you would like to pay your respects, this is when. We're roughly the same age. However, and I can't fathom that perspective that when a doctor told me that you need to quit smoking, you can never drink again in your entire life, and you need to change your diet. Okay, check. What's next?
Yeah.
Like, that was my perspective, was, all right. And they, of course, no one believed me. Like, you're a 20-year smoker. And just like that, that's your perspective. Yes, that is my, he just told me. That's what you got to do.
That's what you got to do.
I'm going to die. I am on watch. I can't go to the bathroom alone. I can't leave my hospital room, because that is the severity of that illness. You can't just go somewhere. So anytime I was bored, so I want to get up and walk around the hospital, I can't go down to the cafeteria. I can't, because people lie, they cheat, they steal, a lot of times when you're in those positions, especially with liver disease, you're an alcoholic. And I'm not lying to you. My sister, who is a nurse, can vouch and say, the extremes that people go to when their perspective is a certain way. And if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, or, even food obsessions and body dysmorphia and, politics, religion, all of these things, when your perspective is of a certain way, literally alcoholics, they somehow justify in their mind, like, oh, I just am tired. I'm tired of my room. I want to get out and walk around the ward. They will go find an alcohol swab used to clean something and rip that little packet open and suck on that little tiny towelette to get that slightest little bit of alcohol or mouthwash or whatever. And they will fight to the death for those things. And in their brain, they've justified it. And I know that that's an extreme, but it's the same with diets. We're constantly looking at, the next quick fix. So there was a quote that I had in my research that I found that I thought was fabulous, about harboring false beliefs. It's not really a quote. It's just more of a statement. The things that we believe to be true that are in fact are not. For example, the capital of Australia. Before I tell you what the capital of Australia is, I'm going to ask you if you think you know what the capital of Australia is. Because the vast majority of people will say that Sydney is the capital of Australia, and it is not. So if you believe that Sydney is the capital of Australia, you are the victim of a false belief. So once you're confronted with that fact and you're told that Canberra, I think is how you pronounce it, is actually the capital of Australia, you will readily accept that change, and you were just misinformed. And now you're educated, because you weren't invested in that belief.
Right.
But when you're invested in the belief, whether it be, so for instance, in the canning world of like canning goods, canning beans, canning jelly, jams, preserves, whatever, those kinds of perceptions are really strong. Why? Because my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my great-grandmother, my grandfather, like all of these 10 generations back, this is how they did it. So there's no amount of scientific proof that's going to tell them otherwise. Is it true that if you do canning improperly, that you can have botulism and all of these horrible, horrible ailments and diseases and bacterias that will make you horribly ill? Yes, that is truth. That is fact. That is science. But just because it can be created in a scientific study in a lab, if you have a technique that is down pat for generations to can something like meat, raw chicken or beef, it's really hard to do at home. But it can be done. So if you have a technique at home that has worked for generations, it doesn't mean that the scientific principle is wrong. It just means that you were taught a way outside of that scientific. So for somebody else to replicate that outside of your family can be very, very dangerous. There's so many different variables. So that's where this belief is so ingrained and they're so invested, you're not going to be able to tell them otherwise. And the world as a whole is geared towards things like that. You drive down the road and things are pushing you to go to McDonald's, to Subway, to, all of these different things. So I think it's hilarious that you're conditioned towards these different aspects. And it's so much easier to believe that it kind of makes it a little bit clearer why it's so hard for people to just believe the simple fact of, if I eat real food and I watch portions, and if I put out as much energy as I consume, then I will be healthy. Instead, they will believe that, cabbage soup diet or the keto diet or the gluten-free diet or the low-fat diet or the carb diet or the whatever, eat gummy bears for 10 days diet or the Subway diet.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's hilarious that the lengths that people will go to. Well, I'm on the cabbage soup diet, so I can have ice cream tonight because I had my cabbage soup today. And they lose a few pounds. And we talked about this last week when Kent was on the show about Noom and how it's not necessarily a diet thing. It's more of a lifestyle thing in making you realize the choices of what you're consuming and the actions behind them.
Right.
It's like life is hard. Yeah. So when people make the choices to continue on a path that is detrimental, my favorite is Diet Coke. Is absolutely horrible for you. It is absolutely horrible for you. It's usually loaded with fake sugars, and colors and dyes, and the fact that it has the word diet on it is absolutely ridiculous to me. But people drink it by the gallon because it says diet on it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and if you read the label on that stuff, it looks like a friggin' science experiment.
I know.
And a lot of that, I can now. At one point, I could not come anywhere near high fructose.
Right.
Of any kind, because it's the process that causes me problems. There's a chemical that gets created through the high temperature of creating high fructose, and my body turns that into a neurotoxin.
Right.
Same with aspartame, sucralose, and a couple other things.
So you know that bugs don't even like aspartame?
Yeah, I don't blame them a bit.
Like if you put a sugar drop candy on the ground and something like a breath mint or something that's just loaded with aspartame or a sugar-free candy, they will avoid it.
They should.
Because it's disgusting. It's horribly. And it's funny, that creamer that we had last week, and I told, as soon as I took a sip of my coffee and had that creamer in it, which today I'm having black coffee. I'm trying to do better. Because that's my nemesis. I like black coffee. I like the flavor of coffee. I enjoy coffee and tea straight. But that's not to say that I don't like caramel macchiato creamer. It's just tasty.
No, it is. And I'm a grown friggin' dude, well past 50. And if you tell me something is pumpkin spice, I'll throw that stuff in my mouth as fast as I can.
See, I don't like pumpkin spice.
No, see,
I'm not a fan of it.
I am when it comes to pumpkin spice, I am the biggest hipster doofus on the planet of the earth.
That's funny.
But I just like it.
That cracks me up.
I just like it.
Hearing you say hipster dude referencing yourself cracks me up, because that's about the farthest thing from the truth.
I know. I'm not anywhere near a hipster doofus dude.
Oh, that's hilarious.
No, but when it comes to pumpkin spice, pumpkin spice Twinkies, pumpkin spice creamer, pumpkin spice donuts, pumpkin spice. You throw pumpkin spice coffee. I don't care. Oh, you tell me that, and I'm there. I'm all about it. Let's go.
The only thing that I like,
dumbest thing in the world, I know, but
pumpkin is pumpkin bars, which is technically a pumpkin cake. So
Well, it is. And I actually have a pumpkin roll in the fridge at home right now.
See, that sounds tasty.
And it is just,
When it's cake,
yeah.
I'm okay with the pumpkin cinnamon style fall type cake. I'm not a huge fan of like the pumpkin spice lattes, and I don't know. I can't do that. That's too much for me.
Yeah, but again, it just depends on what you like. And I absolutely 100% agree with everything you're talking about this morning, because its beliefs are, once you hear a lie, it's been clinically proven.
Yeah.
Like they had to do a clinical trial on this, but it's been clinically proven that the more you try to correct a lie that's been accepted as the truth, the more difficult it is to repeal it, to bring
Right.
it back, and to actually have the truth accepted as actual fact. Because your mind says, no, this is what I like. This is what I believe. This is what I want to hang on to. And it does. And for diet, man, it is like Ted has, I know, talking to Ted, just myself, who, he calls most diets diet junk.
Which is true.
Yeah. But he's lost 80 pounds and kept it off just through exercise and portion control.
So I had put out there to a few people, I put it out on my Facebook page, and actually Ted was one of the ones that responded, that does anybody want to track their food for a week? Now, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an anything. I'm just a chick who knows a lot of things about food and likes to cook stuff, and happens to have some ailments that force me to watch my food. So when I asked people if they wanted to track their food with me for a week, it's not because I'm some doctor that wants to have them report back to me and do whatever. I just kind of wanted to see the perspective of different people and see the kind of questions that they asked. And, one of the responses was, holy crap, I drink a lot of Diet Coke. And I get a lot of people who say that purely by doing some of the things that I suggest, or some of the things that I do, or taking the things that I do and assimilating them into their life and how they fit in their life, that it's helped them lose weight. Now, here's the thing. Not everybody is meant to be a twig. And in actuality, most people aren't. Women are supposed to have a layer of fat. Men are supposed to have more muscle. There's certain things about and depending on your genetics and your upbringing and so on and so forth, will also depend on your body type. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are unhealthy. It just means that your body is supposed to be that way. So when people say that and yes, there's a lot of times where people are in need of losing weight because of the fact that they're unhealthy. But depending on your structure and how your body and your genetics, healthy might be a few extra pounds. So it shouldn't be about how much you weigh specifically. It's part of it, but it should be more about being healthy. So people need to feel like they need to feel the benefits of behavior change, and that it will outweigh the costs. So the psychological cost of giving up Starbucks is too great compared to the quick fix of a fad diet. So if you see something on a magazine or a billboard or an advertisement or a commercial, or worse yet, my sister's cousin did the cabbage soup diet and lost 60 pounds. Well, shit, I am doing that. And the reason I keep bringing up the cabbage soup diet is because somebody that was once close to me swore by it and would suffer through, and the look on her face day after day after day, every single summer after summer, her downing this cabbage soup diet. The biggest reason she lost weight, two things. One, she was eating real food. Mm-hmm. And two, she hated this soup so much that she would only eat a cup of it. So she had enough nutrients because she was eating 3 cups of soup a day, but she lost 60 pounds every summer because she was only eating 3 cups of soup a day. So she lost this amount of water weight and so on and so forth. But in all honesty, as a woman in her 60s, who had children, there's no amount of cabbage soup that was going to get rid of the fat pouch around her belly button or the sides of her hips. She was only, 10 pounds overweight on average, give or take, any day of the week.
Oh.
But at her age, that's just the way her body was going to be forever. So genetically, there's just certain things you can't do about that. So the truth to maintain healthy weight is that you need to eat real food, proper portions, and balance the amount of energy that you consume with the energy that you release. So if you eat 6 cheeseburgers or a box of Ho-Hos, you need to expend 6 cheeseburgers or a box of Ho-Hos worth of energy. And if you think getting up and walking around your kitchen a couple times is going to do that, you are wrong.
No. And if you don't want to go outside, because I'm not a big fan of outside,
right?
Because it's outside. But if you're not a big fan of it, get a treadmill,
right?
Even
something like I used to, before my legs hated me, I used to do the stairs because it would up my heart rate and I would get more energy burned in a shorter period of time. So now Ted said, another key to losing weight is also when you eat, which is 100% true. And we've talked about this quite a bit lately, where if you eat dinner at 6:00 at night and then you don't eat again until lunch, you're fasting every single day. You're telling your body to store food every single day. When you look at societies or cultures around the world, in Italy or Okinawa, Japan is one of, if not the healthiest place on the planet. Tribes, different, when you look at how they eat. So if you ever watched Food Network and you've seen like Andrew Zimmern or whoever go around the world and they visit a tribe of people and they kill one porcupine, and an entire tribe of 40 people all get an ounce of meat, and they all are skinny little twigs, but they're healthy and they're surviving and they're thriving. They don't have cancers and tumors and all of these things because they walk by a bush with berries or nuts or whatever on it, and they eat. They pick and they scavenge all day long. So when you go through an entire day, if you have a piece of fruit or something simple for breakfast and you have little snacks, and that's why I always say that I like to keep the pumpkin seeds and the cashews and the chocolate covered nuts, because a handful of those 1,000,000 times a day. And then like we talked about last week with Kent, is when you do sit down for an actual meal, sit down for a meal. Let your brain register that you're sitting down to eat food and take your time, because it takes about 15 minutes for your body to register that it's full. So if you inhale your food and you're still hungry, and then you inhale a bag of chips, and then you inhale 6 Twinkies, and then
all of a sudden you're like, oh my God.
Right.
Oh.
And what do they do?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Your belly's, it's scientifically proven. Gut you open, pull your stomach out, it's the size of your fist.
Yeah.
Now, can it stretch to fit, 72 hot dogs in an eating challenge? Sure. It's made to not rupture and kill you.
But, again, think about that. Think about the size of your fist.
Right.
And then stuffing, about
a plate of Thanksgiving dinner in there.
Well, just that by itself. And then some pie. And then pretty soon you got something that looks like a balloon that's full to bursting. And that's when you go sit down and you're like, oh, this hurts. Well, duh, it hurts. You just pushed everything else inside you out the way to accommodate 10 pounds of food in a 1 pound bag.
And so that's it's not easy to change a behavior, any behavior at all.
This soup, by the way, is freaking, I did put that sauce in here that you gave me, the Tabasco,
Scorpion sauce.
Scorpion Tabasco. Oh my God, this is so good.
So for those of you that can't see Pete off camera, because he's not on the camera anymore, I was actually going through some of the old programs because I was downloading them all to update my YouTube. And the old set when you could see both of us.
Oh yeah.
I actually kind of like that. Not to lie, I kind of dig the fact where you can see both of us. But now Pete hides off camera.
Oh, it's because we have a nice producer desk set up over here, and
True.
Yeah, and this is your show, not my show. So.
So I made potato soup, which is not an easy thing to make low sodium.
I will show people what's left.
Yeah.
There's not much. You can see this.
Potatoes absorb flavor. And so it's really hard to make potatoes. It's hard to make soups. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not actually that hard to make soups low sodium. They're not supposed to taste like the garbage that you taste in the grocery stores. I don't understand why low sodium soups at the grocery stores taste so horrifically bad. I really don't, because every time I make soup, everybody loves it, including all of my friends. Other than my husband, the vast majority of people are salties that eat my food.
I am.
So
I'm
I think the
100%
closest
a salty.
I think the closest to somebody who's not a salty or reduced salt would now be Kent, because he's watching what he eats and he eats better and he just consumes less salt. He's probably the closest thing outside of my husband that eats my food that is not salty.
Probably. And I will say I did try this before putting the Tabasco in. It didn't need it. I just wanted that in there because it's just so freaking good.
Right.
And now with that in there, this is just, it's like a little bowl of heaven. It's just that freaking good. But it was really good when I tried it. It didn't need salt. It needed nothing.
You do always try my food without, like, it's the same as my husband. Pete actually does always try what I make before adding anything to it. And if you're going to add something to a food, adding a hot sauce is actually pretty healthy. Surprisingly contradictory to what you would think hot sauce, it is an anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. And peppers are really good for you. They have loads of vitamins and antioxidants. So if you're going to have something added to a dish, hot sauce is a good way to go. And
I will say the anti-inflammatory thing is correct. If you're feeling a little stuffy or, coffee or a little congested in the nasal area, give yourself maybe this stuff I would...
That's pretty spicy. For you, it's not.
For me, it's not. It's lovely. It's wonderful. But I would say, a few drops on a teaspoon for people, like 2 or 3 drops is probably all you'd need. I would probably do a little bit more than that just because I like it. But it will open you right up.
Yeah, and that's even in your gut. I mean, yes, spices are on the surface of, the cellular structure, your tongue, your stomach, things like that. If you do have ulcers or anything like that, it does cause that kind of inflammation, but as a digested food source, it is anti-inflammatory.
And I've had ulcers. I have to be very careful. Like I can't have even though I love the way this tastes, I can feel it.
Right.
Because I've had ulcers and it kind of feels like somebody touching a bruise, but I don't care because it tastes really good. So it's not painful. Now I actually had a little sip of, the guys brought swag bags to one of the shows in the evening. And in my bag, they had put a Crown Royal apple in there. And it's just like the little airline
that'll bite you quick.
And I took it home. I'm like, man, I haven't had anything like this in a long time. I know how it's going to feel, but I want to taste it. Mm-hmm. So I opened it up. I tasted it. And it tastes absolutely it's a fantastic flavor. But as soon as that touched my stomach, it felt like pouring alcohol on an open wound. It did not feel good at all. I knew that was coming, but it hurt I chased it with a nice big glass of whole milk, and it probably hurt for about an hour. And just that little sip.
So it's funny.
So you got to be careful with that kind of stuff.
Talking about perspective and the decisions that I made and how easy it was for me to make that decision, to make such a lifestyle change, and how hard it is for others. The reason why it's so hard for me to comprehend how somebody would still choose to drink alcohol or to smoke or to eat garbage when you have something like I have, like liver disease. It's one thing if you're a healthy human being and you want to have a bourbon or a beer or whatever. I get that. I totally get that. And if I still could, I still would. I like scotch. If I could have 2 fingers of a single malt Spalen scotch, I probably would.
Same.
But the pure fact is that So when you go to Village Squire or any Greek restaurant for that matter, they probably have flaming cheese, the saganaki, which is just high alcohol poured, and then the fumes are lit, and that's where you get the fire. It doesn't, contrary to what people believe, it does not burn the alcohol off. So when you give it to your 5-year-old kid at the table, you're giving your kid cheese with a shot of Greek vodka, essentially, on top of it.
You're contributing to the delinquency of a minor there, folks.
Now, granted, that quarter of a shot that they just got on that cheese is probably not enough to get them drunk. I will say that somebody as me with liver disease, when I eat that, the one day we left and I was contemplating whether or not I had just gotten food poisoning. And, Ben and I are questioning it, and then come to realize the next time we went, same thing happened. And it was purely the fact that even that minuscule amount of alcohol, I cannot have with my liver. So everybody knows I cook with wine a lot. I mean, that soup is made with wine. I cook with wine a lot. Alcohol will eventually cook out of a dish over a long period of time because it boils faster than water does. It's just science. But lighting something on fire real quick, that flambe, you're just lighting the fumes.
Yeah.
So you're not burning any part of the alcohol. You're not boiling the alcohol. It's still there. But the choice to, and that's what's funny, because something so simple as a little bite of cheese with a little bit of alcohol on it made me feel akin to food poisoning.
Oh.
So to make the conscious choice to say, I have advanced liver disease, but it's worth it to eat garbage and feel that way all the time, or smoke cigarettes and feel that way all the time, or drink alcohol and end up in the hospital every 3 weeks all the time until I die.
Yeah.
That level of persuasion in your own brain is what I can't personally comprehend. So it just boggles my mind. And if it wasn't for the fact that I love psychology, I research it. I love the human brain. I love everything about it. I love everything about the human body. I'm surprised that I didn't go into a medical field of some kind, probably because I'm too lazy and don't like reading books.
But you research everything.
I do, but I mean, it's selective research. It's not enough to get a PhD. It's probably why I wasn't very good in school. But like the Mandela effect. So the Mandela effect is something that my husband and I talk about frequently. And so the term the Mandela effect began when the first coined in 2009, when Fiona published on her website her observance of the phenomenon. I can't read. My writing is too small. It was about how, let's see here, the tragedy of former South African President Nelson Mandela's death in South African prison in the 1980s. However, Nelson Mandela did not die in the 80s. He died in 2013. So it's been coined the Mandela effect because there's a large portion of people who believe that he died in a prison versus dying much, much later in different means. So notable examples of the Mandela effect is the most common one that a lot of people think is in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Many people remember Darth Vader saying the words, "Luke, I am your father." And in actuality, watch the movie, he says, "No, I am your father."
Yeah.
So there's a lot of them. The spelling and pronunciation of Bernstein Bears.
Yeah.
Oscar Mayer. Look it up. How do you spell Oscar Mayer versus how you think Oscar Mayer is spelled?
Yeah.
What's another one? My favorite is Shazam, which kind of stinks because now there is actually a movie that both Pete and I really like called Shazam that came out a couple years ago. It's pretty funny.
I actually really do like that movie. I like it a lot.
We just watched it the other day.
Well, I didn't watch it with you, but
no, yes. Yeah. My husband and I watched it the other day. But so it was funny when I was reading this because one instance of the Mandela effect is the collective memory of a movie called Shazam that starred comedian Sinbad in the 1990s. And it never existed. He never was in a movie. He was never in anything close to it. It did not exist. So where did this come from? Now, of course, there's a conspiracy theory that the Mandela effect is because of alternate realities and your perception to be able to see this alternate reality, when in actuality, it's a combination of false memories.
Yeah.
Your brain is amazing. It makes things up all the time. As you're driving down the road, so from birth, as you experience things in life, you see a tree, you learn what a tree is. You see a flower, you see a bird, and your brain collectively makes all of these things. In order to process all of the neurological things that happen when you're driving down a road, operating a vehicle, your body functioning, breathing, the whole 9 yards, all of the processes that your brain has to do from a cellular structure all the way up to your neurological brain to go down a road in a moving vehicle, it just fills in the gaps. Literally fills in the gaps, which is why there's so many times where you're like, holy crap, how did I get home? I left work and now I'm home. Your brain does the rest of it without you even knowing. And it's the same with all of these different perceptions, where it's really good at convincing you of things, whether they're factual or not. And it's also really good at finding ways to give you warm and fuzzies.
Yeah. And it's to that point of the brain. This is how I discovered a few things a number of years ago. This goes about 7 or 8 years back. I went through periods where I would be just like you and I are sitting here talking, and all of a sudden I would go from this to an entirely different place, location, interaction,
right,
doing things, and I would literally lose blocks of time. And I've
right.
never gotten them back. And the worst one was when I was in a meeting with someone in an office. And then I went from, talking to, my realization was just like, boom, it was like a jump cut in a movie to, I'm driving down the freeway in Wisconsin.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, holy crap, how did this happen? And it turns out one of the things I wasn't getting was enough iron to my brain, because iron carries oxygen up to your brain through your bloodstream. But there were a few other things going on with that. But that now, thankfully, they figured that out really pretty quick. But it brought to light a few other things. But it can be a kind of a scary thing. But your brain can get you from all the way from being in a meeting to now your conscious cognition brings you into miles away and hours away from where you just were. And that's a scary feeling. It doesn't feel good. It's freaky. But yeah, your brain can do stuff like that.
Well, and that's what's funny is how it's so true. And part of the reason that I love psychology so much is I love understanding other people's perspective. Growing up with people in my lives who have chemical imbalances in their brains made me want to understand that. So if you know anybody in your life that has any kind of depression or depressive disorder, it is a chemical imbalance or difference in somebody's brain. That combined with perspective in their life. So when people look at me and, oh my God, you have so much, my perspective is I don't, because everybody else that has what I have is getting a new liver right now. Mm-hmm. I was diagnosed in 2015. It has been 5 years that I quit smoking, I quit drinking, and I said, okay, to my doctor when he said, you need to make a lifestyle change. And I said, okay. And he went, yeah, sure. I'll see you in a week. And then another week, and then another week. And I literally had to go see my doctor every single week, get my blood tested every single week for 3 months. And then it was every other week. I mean, the first year was nothing but test after test after test after test, which is why I thought it was hilarious when someone said, you must have been misdiagnosed. Do you have any idea how many hours I have spent in the tube of an MRI machine?
Oy.
Like just this spring, I have to logistically figure out, because of COVID, everybody knows that you have to get a COVID test before you go to get a medical procedure done.
Yeah.
You don't just walk into a hospital and they say, okay, let's get you tested. That's all on you to do. 90% of the time, you got to figure it out. You go get your COVID test. Now, here's the flip side. You as an HR person probably know this. Most employers say whether you voluntarily or don't voluntarily because you're sick have to get a COVID test or choose to get a COVID test. You're out of the building for 48 hours because you need to get your test. And this is after the results, because you got to get your test, you got to get the results, and then you got to be symptom free for at least 2 days. Because Pete could have COVID right now. I could have gotten tested and tested negative this morning, and then he gives it to me now. So within 48 hours, I start to show symptoms. So that is just.
Which, by the way, I know I keep wiping here, but I put enough scorpion sauce.
You went a little bit baller on that.
I did. I
saw.
was really shaking it up. But it was so good.
But so you have logistically, I have to figure out, because obviously I have to let my employer know that I'm going to take a COVID test to go get my exams done. So either A, I get tested so that I can go get my testing, like my COVID test, so I can go get my scans done. The problem is, normally I'd say, okay, I'm going to go in and get, my scope done. And then a week later, I'm going to go in and get my ultrasound done. And then a week later, I'm going to get, now with my spine, I'm going to get my spinal tap done to get my MS test. And I'm going to have, because I have to have my MRI, which is my brain, my cervical, thoracic, and lumbar MRI. That is like 9 hours, no joke, in the tube if I did it all in one shot.
Ugh,
so do I say, okay, I'm going to take this week off so I can go do a test because I got to get COVID tested. I got to wait for the results. Then I got to schedule my test with the hospital. Then I got to go in and get my scan done. And then next week I'm going to do it again and miss days upon days. Or do I say, I'm going to get COVID tested and I'm going to go stay in the hospital for 2 days so I can get all of this done and then risk being in a hospital with a bunch of sick people?
Yeah.
But again, my perspective is I'm not on a liver transplant list and I'm not paralyzed, because like 80% of people who have a lesion on their spine are crippled.
Yeah.
So it really is how you choose to believe. And those beliefs can either get you in a lot of trouble or they can get you a lot of good. The body and the brain are amazing things. Me, I choose to research. So I, unfortunately, thanks to the political climate, spend my life on fact check websites because I don't like the news. I don't like the media. And if I want to read something somebody said, I will go to the source. I won't read snippets. I won't read headlines. I can't stand it. It drives me crazy. And it's the same with food.
Yeah.
When someone says, I laugh, like gut laugh. There's some commercial right now about this new diet thing that's based around sugar. And your glycemic could be high. Well, yeah, most people who are heavy set are pre-diabetic. Why? Because they're probably eating a lot of sugars and carbs.
Yeah. And
so shocker that you have high sugar levels.
Well, and the funny thing is my blood work when it gets done usually gets done twice, because they say it looks too good coming out of a guy that looks like me.
That's my husband. You are boring on paper and you shouldn't be.
Yeah. And additionally too, a guy that looks like me, I'm now no longer on blood pressure meds. The funny thing is I ran out in September, and
I think it's amazing. I love hearing that.
They said, well, you got to come into the office. I'm like, well, I can't, I just don't have the time. Okay, we'll get you a 30-day prescription and then we'll do a phone consult on the end of October. Just watch your blood pressure every day. And so I'm like watching it. Well, meanwhile, my blood pressure med, I guess because everybody during COVID's blood pressure went up, it's been on back order for freaking months.
Mhm.
And so I just never got it. But then I started looking at my blood pressure because I'm checking it 2 and 3 times a day, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
And I love
And
hearing
it's
those
fine.
stories.
And they said, well, then never mind. You don't need it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, I have my belly precedes me into most rooms. And it just,
It's like having a cop. He checks the corners.
yeah, he does. My belly checks the corners. And my knees are getting better because I've been using them more.
Right.
Because they support my little chicken knees support this giant belly. But I'm off blood pressure meds. Don't need them. So
and it's funny because that's when I talk about my story and everybody asks me, what did you do? And it was enough for me to say, okay, quit smoking, quit drinking. Like, I'm not an idiot. I knew smoking wasn't good for me, but I enjoyed it.
Same. I used to. I quit smoking at the top of that landing 20 years ago.
Yeah, we were talking about that last week. But that's the thing is, just because I knew it doesn't mean that I changed that aspect of my life. So unfortunately, it almost always it takes a significant act to change your perspective, regardless of what it is. And like you look at ghost hunting videos, everybody's going to see something different. Someone's going to see it's a piece of dust. Someone's going to see a moth. Someone's going to see an apparition of Jesus. Someone's going to see a ghost. Someone's going to see their long lost dead relative and say, oh, that looks like Aunt Marie.
She was always very white and pasty.
Right.
But, yeah, no.
I love my house, and I told my husband that the kids movie Monster House, I'm going to be that lady. Like if I ever die, I'm going to don't come near my house because I love
come
my
in
house.
and get off my lawn or my house will eat you.
It'll be like some nightmarish perpetual Thanksgiving because I won't want anybody to leave eating my food. But the
people may not want to. Go in this haunted house. You're going to have great food.
Right?
You won't ever get to leave, but you'll eat well for the rest of your life.
So
there you go.
It's funny because the things that your body can do are amazing, both good and bad. You can trick yourself into believing things which people do every single day. I call it justifiable license. And it's so funny to me when I hear someone say, but this is different. How is the cabbage soup diet different from the Mediterranean diet you tried, or the keto diet you tried, or the Atkins diet you tried, or the this diet, or the that diet, or the Smurf diet? I don't care what freaking diet it was. But this is different. And you find a way to justify it in your brain. And we do that on all aspects of life, which is why I love research, because when I research things and I go and I started finding out all of these wonderful things that food can do, and realize that it doesn't matter what, because I did what diet cirrhosis diet, liver diet, low sodium diet, because of course that's what the doctors told me. And the doctors know what they're talking about. They're PhD certified school. They know what they're talking about. I should trust what they tell me. Wrong. They're not lying. They're right. But it's only a half right. And there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
And by doing this research and finding out things, how food affects your body individually, how it affects your organs, your liver, your kidney, your heart, your blood pressure, and how it affects your brain and the chemicals in it. So for instance, my husband and I cut out soda and pop at whatever years before my liver failed because of how much we were consuming. And just that alone, my husband's mood and personality changed. Unfortunately, he doesn't necessarily always see it, because usually people who have a chemical imbalance or depression or anything of that nature, They don't see it. It's why they stop taking medications, because they say, oh, well, I'm feeling fine and nobody's complaining, so I don't need the medication. And they stop taking the medication, and then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
But food can help that significantly in things that people don't realize affect you, like grapefruits. Just the things that are in the grapefruit, depending on your chemical makeup, especially if you're on certain medications, they will affect you. So to change your behavior, I think, I know it's not easy, but everybody has an excuse. It's too hard. I don't have time. There's a million excuses. I made homemade bread, which you just had.
It was really good too.
And my own pasta sauce yesterday, and potato soup. Now, granted, I had the day off and I had time to cook. So my bread recipe, how much time we got? I got plenty of time.
Oh yeah, we got like 9 minutes.
So the bread recipe that I found that I love to make, I've learned that I need to weigh it. So get yourself a scale, because Pete and I were just talking about this. 3 cups of flour, depending on how humid your house is or the kind of flour you got, or if it's packed down or fluffy or sifted, is not necessarily the same as it is weighed. So I threw away 6 loaves of bread and a batch of bread dough that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. And my husband went, so what's going on? Trying something new? No, I have just personally screwed up my bread recipe that I make all the time 2 days in a row. So I broke out my scale and put a new battery in it, and I got to get an analog one. But 350 grams of flour. I do put 1/8 of a teaspoon of pink salt. I know I'm a low sodium show host with liver disease that spouts don't eat salt. Doesn't mean you can't eat salt. It means that you need to be balanced. Yeah. And some people can't. Some people are so responsive to salt that they can't have any. I'm at a point, and I am healthy enough that if I want to put a little bit of salt, especially when other people eat my food, that I can. So I do an actual 1/8 of a teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt, 30 grams of sugar, which is about a tablespoon, and then a tablespoon of yeast. I mix warm milk, 150 milliliters, with 1 egg, whisk it up, and then dump it in with all of the rest of the stuff. And keep in mind, I sift the flour and all of those dry ingredients together, dump in the milk egg mixture, and let it mix. As soon as it starts to come to little dough balls, like the liquid is no longer a pool in there and there's a ton of still dry flour in the bowl, I will cut in about 50 grams of butter, which is like 3.5, 4 tablespoons of butter. And it looks like it's not going to be a wet enough dough. It literally looks like it's going to be a big dry hunk of biscuit stuff that you're going to have to pack together. But trust me, you let it knead in your mixer for 20 minutes, and the butter and the fat in the butter starts to melt. And butter is actually a liquid. It's just in a solid state at room temperature, and it turns into the liquid and the fat that you need to make that bread nice and good. And once that is done, you cover it, let it rise for 60 minutes. You take it out, you form it into whatever you want, loaves, biscuits, rolls, doesn't matter. You let it rise for another 45 minutes, and then you bake it. 350 degrees for however long it takes. If you're doing the little mini loaves, it was 20 minutes. If you're doing a big loaf, it's going to be longer. Just depends on what you're putting it in. That is my go-to recipe. Those I actually roll out and put Parmesan cheese and then roll it up like a cake roll before I bake it. And then it's got rolled cheese in the middle because I put cheese on everything.
That's good. That's good.
So it seems like a whole lot, and it's not. It's not like it. The amount of time that it took me, about 5 minutes, to literally just dump a bunch of crap in a bowl, and let my mixer do its thing for 20 minutes, put it in my microwave where it doesn't get drafty, and let it rise for an hour. So take a shower, do whatever. Actually, the other day I ran to Home Depot while it was in the microwave. Came home, put it in loaf pans. Takes 2 seconds to cut it up, shape it in a loaf, put it in a pan, and then let it rise again. Another 45 minutes, do whatever you're going to do. So collectively, it takes a long time, but the amount of effort involved in making homemade bread, which is this big daunting thing, is minimal. So now let's fast forward to last night's dinner and homemade sauce. The same amount of time that it takes me to open a can of spaghetti sauce takes me to make spaghetti sauce from scratch, because I put ground beef or ground chicken or something in. I put a protein in, whether it's beef or mushrooms, whatever you want. I saute onions and garlic. Once that's done, I add my wine, let that reduce so the wine's all gone, so there's no alcohol. And then I add my protein, whether it's mushrooms or beef or chicken. And instead of adding a jar of spaghetti sauce, I simply add 1 or 2 cans, 28-ounce big cans of San Marzano whole tomatoes with sauce. Not San Marzano style or plum tomatoes. The San Marzano from Italy tomatoes are I don't care who you are. It's my perspective. You will not convince me otherwise. My taste buds say that is what is good. And then seasonings, whatever you like. I personally do paprika, basil, oregano, mint. Sometimes if I feel like going Greek, a little bit of red pepper flake. And if I have it in my cabinet, I will do Dax Original Red, which has got a little bit of spice to it. But you can cheat and just dump Italian seasoning in there. It's got all the same stuff in it. Or a Greek seasoning has got all the same stuff as Italian seasoning, but typically mint. Smash up the tomatoes and boom, you have your own sauce. That's it. It didn't take any more time. So when people say, I don't have the time to make my own spaghetti sauce, in their brain, they're picturing this Italian mother that lets their gravy sit and stew on the counter for 2 days, which is and it's not the same, and they don't taste the same. And there's a reason why that grandmother's sauce tastes
the way it does.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the sauce that I make quickly in the same amount of time as a regular canned sauce is as good as somebody's grandmother's sauce, because it's not. It's not the same thing. And my sauce, my bolognese that takes 2 days to make, is way better.
And there's some stuff my wife makes that's from her dad's mom, who, again, they were very Italian, like fresh off the boat folks. And there's some stuff. She only makes it every great once in a while, because it does take, like, it's a sauce that takes more than a day to make.
Right.
And it just does. But when it's done,
it's fantastic.
My gosh,
there's an umami that comes with that you can't ignore. So it's funny, if you watch the beginning episodes, every single episode I started with salt is salt is salt. And Ted, we're gonna bash on perspectives here for a second, because I missed that pink one. Himalayan sea salt is much better for you. So not really. Salt is salt, whether it is salt of the earth like pink Himalayan sea salt or Celtic salt or gray salt. It is still salt. It's still sodium chloride. The perception that pink salt is better for you or much healthier for you than table salt is because of the concept or the thought process that it has more natural components, which is true. That is 100% truth. It is not processed, it is not refined, and it does not have iodine added to it. So in that aspect, depending on your argument, if you need iodine, you probably actually do need table salt. If you get a varied diet, then you don't need the iodine and table salt anymore, and it is less processed. However, the ratio of potassium and magnesium and all of these other chemicals and minerals that are good for you that are in salt is like so when you look at the scale, it's like a 0.00001%. So you probably get more nutrients from, licking a wall than you, when you're speaking comparatively salt versus salt.
Licking walls.
So I personally do the pink salt because of the fact that I like the flavor, because there is a different flavor. I like pink salts, and I like the Celtic salt if I was going to actually choose a salt for cooking. But that's why they call it finishing salt, because of the shape of the crystals actually hits your tongue differently than granulated processed iodine salt. So there's my little tangent, and we have about 30 seconds left for me to say, support me, support my station, support our YouTube pages. Please subscribe, see our videos past and present. And plus all of the other shows that we have. We have a lot of shows on 216 The Net that are fantastic. You should see them on both the websites, mylosolifestyle.com and 216thenet.com. And we will see you guys next Thursday.
There we go.
Woohoo!